guess why did you end up making a channel in the first place to talk about GameStop?
Well, I started making a channel on GameStop because the individuals that actually were making videos on GameStop, I didn't believe them. I didn't believe that they believed in the company, that they understood retail and or the direction that GameStop was going. So I have a big background on retail and the way it's going. So I said, okay, I like what Ryan's doing. I like what GameStop's doing. Let me tell this story. And I didn't know how to YouTube. I didn't know how to make a video. I didn't know how to record. I didn't know how to do anything. But I figured if I would just start talking, it would work and people would understand the investment and what it is. So it's grown. It's grown from, small to smaller. I don't know. I'm not that big, but I'm the one place you can come to get the actual fundamentals and the real talk about retail and GameStop. And there's not another YouTuber out there right now in America that does that.
Perfect. Anything else you wanted to add in, Ayaz, or ask?
Yeah, I would be interested to know how much time you spend on this in terms of how much time you spend researching GameStop, how much time you spend on the channel.
You make me laugh right now. Ayaz, I'm so sorry. So the question is, how much time do I put into the channel and how much time do I put into research on GameStop? GameStop has led me to another whole world. The private equity world I didn't know existed the way I do now. And the amount of research I do, I'm probably good for about 20 to 40 hours a week on research, not just recording. I don't know when I sleep. I really don't. I work about 60 hours a week. So to add on to YouTube on top of that, I probably sleep about 3 to 4 hours a day. And it's been everything to me since the day I started looking into GameStop. So maybe 3 years now, and getting this education that I would have never gotten if I didn't start digging into it. But more time than most, and if I could do more, I would. It's a hobby of mine that has grown into an obsession where I want to know why and where and how my money is being spent. And that's just where I've become more in tune.
That's a lot of time.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that for a second. You asked how much time, right? Like if you want like a real outline of my day, let's just say I wake up in the morning and I wake up at 7 a.m. Take my son to school. I drive an hour to and from, drop him off, get home. I study up until I have to go to work. So about 2 hours, I'll study the markets and GameStop itself. So that's why I can rattle off some of this info from a stock analysis standpoint, where they're headed trailing 12, what I think they will do. And then I'm scrambling, I'm looking. And as I go on my day, throughout my day, my lunch hour, my little 30-minute lunch, whatever it may be, I'm studying the board of directors for other companies. Where have they been? What was their lineage? What did they do? And then I get home and I tell my wife, hey, hon, I love you. And thank you for dinner, but I'm gonna go back into the lab. And I go right back in here and I study till about 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning. So I'd probably do an additional 6 hours after work. I would say 4 to 6 in that range. So at least 8 hours a day, so 40 hours a week, and not counting weekends, and that's not counting my live time. So when I am live and I'm making videos, I'll go live for 3 to 4 hours at a time, and I'll make videos all week long about GameStop and private equity and the markets themselves. So yeah, it's my life.
Just on that, I guess if the fundamentals seem fairly secure in the investment, with all of that research, with all of that digging, what are you trying to uncover?
Well, you ask, why do I make all these videos and why do I talk about all this when it's so secure and we know the info and we know where it's headed? Why do I have to keep telling people? Well, my voice can get muted. There's a shadow band out there. There's this way where I'll post something and I'll get blocked, or someone will report my video for misinformation. I've had Twitter shut me down. I've had TikTok shut me down. I've had YouTube shut me down. If you guys don't remember, I was trying to reach out to you guys before, and I was blocked and banned off of YouTube. So if the information's right, why am I being shut down? I ask myself. So I just keep trying to put the voice out there brick by brick, and we're at 9,000 plus subscribers now versus the 100 of people that used to tell me I didn't know what I was talking about. Now they're all in and they understand. Like, well, okay, that makes total sense now. And it takes, maybe you have to hear something 10 times before it comes through your head. Or maybe you have to lose your money in your other investment and be like, who was that guy that I saw that said something about GameStop? Let me go find out who he was. And there I am. I'm right in front of you. and I'm going to be in front of you. I'm not going to stop. And it's not like I get paid a crazy amount off of YouTube. No way. I think I made $7 yesterday off of YouTube. So if you can imagine the amount of hours I do more hours than dollars when it comes to YouTube, without a doubt.
Why does your voice get suppressed online like this?
Well, your voice can get suppressed for numerous reasons. One, it could be delivery. I'm not a nice guy. I'm a great guy. I might be the most enduring guy. But when I feel that people are being taken advantage of because of the other stocks and or the other misinformation. I'll give you this example, guys. If someone's going to tell you GameStop's a failed company, Ryan's a failed CEO, look at all he's ever done. His track record is to build up a company and sell it, build up a company and sell it. And GameStop's, failing because everything's going digital. It's not physical anymore. Okay. Well, that's your opinion, but the facts don't support your opinion, right? So until people stop telling me how they feel about things and show me documented, 10Ks and 10Qs that support what they're saying, then we're going to just agree to disagree.
Sorry, I think I'm not 100% sure I got that.
Yeah.
Which might be honestly my issue.
No.
But in terms of when you say, are you saying that that's specifically related to, you being shadow banned and stuff like that?
Yeah. So I'll explain the whole shadow ban theory, right? From our standpoint. When I make videos and I put different tickers at the top, they get different views. If I put AMC, it gets pushed out, and I'll get random comments by bots, automatic. I mean, they just pop up within seconds. And I noticed that I would get more traction if I talked about other stocks, but whenever I talk about GameStop, no traction. So I had to find this organic growth through GameStop and find out who are real people and who are not. So as I make the videos, you can mute the voice. You really can. People will tell you, oh no, you can't be put on Reddit. There's rules. You can no longer talk about GameStop on Wall Street Bets. You even type in the letters GME, you get blocked and banned. You can't post things on certain subreddits. And when that happens, so you can't go to Twitter. If you go to Twitter and you post, people will do a mass report of your videos. And so you have to create this ecosystem of, hey, we're going to get one person at a time. We're going to talk to that one person and we're going to say, you know what? Here's what GameStop is. Here's the fundamentals and here's where the company's headed. And if they believe you, great. If they don't, then okay. But then maybe they don't know how to do math at that point. But you'll show them the fundamentals. And that's what I've been doing. I've just been trying to show individuals the balance sheet for a long time, the income statement and the cash flow. So it's in all aspects, GameStop's been positive.
Who specifically do you think is suppressing, shadow banning the use of words, and what is in it for them to do something like this?
Media itself has been suppressing GameStop's voice and message. I interact with Michael Packer from Wedbush. We do that on Twitter. We go back and forth. I've made videos for him. I've dealt with individuals at the top when it comes to Brian Suzy at Yahoo Finance. And you have to look at the parent companies, right? When GameStop's drowning, the first thing you see on the TV is GameStop meme stocks all down. I did a video on this last week where they said all meme stocks are going down. It was because AMC was down, but yet they put a picture of GameStop store on the actual article. And nothing to do with GameStop. GameStop's not going down. GameStop's positive and doing great. So I was just like, man, everyone wants to tie everyone together in one basket. And who's doing it? Well, who owns Yahoo? Apollo owns Yahoo. I've seen private equity, they own over 50% of the media today. So I will tell you that I don't know who's the wizard behind the curtain. I don't know who it is. But I will tell you that I felt it on many occasions. I've had my Twitter blocked and banned. I'm on my second Twitter account now. And there's nothing anybody can do. They just mass report you and you have to defend yourself. So I've seen plenty of GameStop, they call us elitist. GameStop elitists get shut down. Absolutely.
So do you think, based on my understanding of this, do you think it would be an unreasonable assumption to say something like private equity organizations are funding or pushing the suppression of pro-GameStop media and news?
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. I don't know how you can explain it. See, here's the thing, guys.
Do you want me? Sorry, just before you could, do you want me to ask that question?
Yeah, I have to read. I have to say it a different way. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
I'm ready to go.
I'll ask it on my end. And then,
Sure.
And then, yeah,
I got you.
So I guess is the implication here that private equity institutions are trying to purposefully drown out and push down the noise that is being made from GameStop retail investors?
James, you asked the question, is it private equity that's actually pushing this shadow ban per se? I don't know who's doing it, right? But I will assume something for you right now. There are multiple markets and multiple companies. And when I say markets, I'm talking about like actual websites. Let's give you the example, MarketWatch. MarketWatch will do a whole editorial piece on meme stocks. And they'll say this meme stock is down and it's out and it's never coming back. Mullen Automotive, for example. And then they'll put other meme stocks like AMC and GameStop. They put them in the same paragraph. And when you put that on the same byline, understand how is a company like Mullen Automotive with $90 million worth of market cap, $60 million worth of market cap, getting editorial pieces online somewhere, and it's splashed in front of you. How are these stocks with zero market cap and zero investment credibility being pushed out via these digital platforms? It's unbelievable, the psyop that's happening. And I can see it. I can see it come from a mile away because I come from that world. I used to work for Gannett. And it's USA Today, careerbuilder.com, all the above. And I was a senior sales executive for retail advertising, right? And you would try to recruit people for, oh God, this answer is terrible. I'm messing up. I apologize. Ask the question. I got to think of the word. Hold on. I was a senior sales executive for recruitment advertising. Okay, there we go. Okay, so I had to remember my title. It's been so long. But ask the question one more time, and then I'll do it for you.
Sure, we'll jump right to the start of it. So I guess, Marantz, is the implication that there is a organized effort with private equity firms to purposefully push out or mute information about GameStop?
Sure. James, you're asking about shadow ban, right? For the lack of a better term. And private equity are they shadow banning the positive articles about GameStop? I've seen this happen. Believe it or not, I've seen this happen in real time. I used to work for Gannett, USA Today, careerbuilder.com. I was in the room with Bob Dickey. You guys can look him up, you guys can. But we're in these rooms with the publishers. And they're actually asking, hey, here's what we're going to run. Here's the piece we're going to run. Is this okay? And everyone would vote. And then people would be like, no, we can't do that. We're a Republican newspaper. We can't do that. Or we're a Republican, editorial piece. We can't do it. So you would find out like the real flow of American news. And I can only imagine what's happening in these boardrooms for when it comes time for editorial pieces on GameStop. And in the positive, because they have these stories ready to go. When you see stories about stocks, no-name companies with small market caps getting editorial pieces, there's just no way that you could get that byline without it being pushed out for the PSYOP itself. No one's going to talk about Mullen Automotive. Why are we talking about a company that has a $60 million market cap? Yeah, we're going to talk about it. It's going to get headline news. No way, unless they want it to be pushed out in front of you. And they group it together with baskets, right? So it's all the meme stocks are in here together. Now we're going to talk about X, Y, and Z, all these failed companies, and then they throw GameStop on top. And it's for a reason. It's to get you to think in one direction, when all you have to do is see that GameStop fundamentally is a sound company. That's it. And it has.
I guess the natural extension of that question is like, well, what's in it for them? Why would they want to remove or drown out positive sentiment around GameStop?
Well, to remove and or to keep the shadow ban on GameStop would then encourage the story that shorts never closed. Because private equity firms invest money for decades at a time, for cycles at a time. And if they are the ones that I feel are behind this whole PSYOP, then they're in trouble. Understand this. AMC was pushed through the roof. It went sky high, and that's private equity owned. That's owned by Apollo, literally. And their executives are in charge. Adam Aron is Apollo. So when you find out, okay, well, this is what's happening with AMC, well, that's being pushed, that's offsetting what GameStop is. So if GameStop's being pushed to the moon, you got to push AMC because that's their collateral. That's their long versus the short. So that gets pushed. What's the next private equity play that gets pushed out? Carvana explodes at the same time. And you have to start looking at all these stocks that exploded at the same time when GameStop did. You wonder why they halted 9 securities on January 2028. because private equity is involved with the other 7 or 8. GameStop is not involved with private equity. GameStop pushed out private equity. And that's the difference here. That's the big fundamental difference for me.
Oh, gosh, okay, so I think there's 2 things that come to my head. I'm thinking which to jump to first. Are you able to elaborate a bit more on the relationship that you mentioned between private equity, AMC, and GameStop? You're suggesting that they're long on AMC because it's private equity owned and short on GameStop, and the reason that they're trying to drown out positive sentiment on GameStop is to enforce the idea that shorts didn't close. But isn't enforcing that idea going to end up bringing retail to a position of wanting to buy into GameStop?
So you're asking that a little different, James. Okay, so just so that we're clear, they actually promote AMC, right? They need it to get pumped up because GameStop was pumping up at the same time. I.e., if I'm closing shares, right? If I'm closing at any time, just to swap it out, just to switch it over to someone else, you're going to see some price action. You're going to see some volume go up. Well, now you're going to see this one go crazy to offset this one because my collateral. I just want to give you a number. Let's just say 50 billion. So I'm 50 billion short on GameStop. I better hope that I have 50 billion long on AMC. And you see this yin and yang. So as this one comes down, this one goes up. But what's been happening, they both get pushed down well below anything you've ever seen. This one's at pennies on the dollar right now. It's all the way down to the ground. Well, so is GameStop essentially. They have no choice. So when GameStop's fundamentals push past, this will go bankrupt. This will get gone. It's going to be gone. And they've already moved on their swap from AMC. It's no longer going hand in hand. I don't know if you remember this, because I don't know if you're around then. They used to say GameStop moves the same. AMC, GameStop, they move the same because they had to. Now you have to find your next swap, and we already found it. I think it's Carvana right now. So you'll see that the stocks move the same over the last couple months. But you see where they're at, and that's private equity owned, by the way. That's owned by Apollo as well. So I think it's private equity behind it all. But how you want to ask this question is like if we could explain the short versus their long, and I'll try my best.
No, I think I'm just because I guess I'm piecing it together as you explain it. So what we're saying is we have a situation where information like positive sentiment around GameStop will be purposefully suppressed because it's in private equity interest to not have GameStop do well as a company because of their short position in the company.
Oh yeah. I know where we're going. Okay, I have something.
Interrupt me if I'm getting this wrong. I'm just making sure that.
No, you're saying it right, but I can explain it. There we go.
Gosh, feel free to jump in if you need to. Then the other component to this is also the idea that with companies like AMC as an example, because they are long on AMC, they might encourage or purposefully put out positive sentiment around AMC, particularly when GameStop shoots up, so they can offset their short position exposure on GameStop. That's
absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. So I'll explain something to you, James. This is like for everyone to know. Everyone asked, how does one offset versus the other, or why does private equity involved? So there are companies that private equity has their executives in. Their board of directors, all private equity. And we've outlined this. And so when you see it happen, they will start making decisions that are something you'd never do, right? Like I'll give you the example, AMC bought into a gold mine company. And you're like, what the hell are they doing? Why are they buying into a gold mine company? And it's just to trigger a leverage play for them, as in they have all this cash, they have to do something with it. Pay their executives bonuses? Sure. Hand out all this money for advertising that you would never do. Movie theaters don't advertise, right? They don't, because the movie company actually advertises the movie. You don't need to advertise as a movie theater. There's no point. But they'll do it anyway. And they'll spend all this money that they don't have. And they do it this way because they want to over-leverage themselves as a company. But they already have their board of directors being private equity. Everyone's private equity over there. And when you look at GameStop's board of directors, they're not private equity. They're their own money. Larry Chang, over $1 million worth of GameStop stock himself. And when you look at Ryan Cohen, he actually bought in over $50 million already on GameStop himself. So these individuals that are invested with GameStop are not private equity. They're battling private equity. But now that you are up against private equity, think about how they can attack you. They can attack you on freight. So when you think about logistics and freight and delivery of product, You got to go look at Yellow. Yellow went bankrupt. That means that if they had those lines with GameStop, GameStop had to find a new carrier. But Yellow's owned by Apollo. They can attack you on every front that you can think of. So then you're going to go ahead and look at their the employees' benefits. Employee benefits are owned by private equity. I've broken this down to Principal Financial is in charge of GameStop's 401k and their benefits. So then you say, okay, well, maybe GameStop's now renegotiating with them and getting a better deal because the deal that they had was actually gutting them dry. They had just agreed to it in 2019. So when private equity comes in, they change all aspects of the business. They agree to do things to benefit other private equity firms. They've been doing this for decades, and that's what GameStop stopped. So the game stopped with them. Ryan Cohen put his own money in, and that's how they're attacking these companies from the. But it's happening across retail and other sectors. Healthcare, definitely retail, and then oil as well. So private equity drives this world.
If private equity had this kind of level of influence, I guess in my mind, I wonder what would be even the point in them trying to short something like GameStop. If they had the level of influence where they could just command the share price up via just spreading positive sentiment around a company, why bother shorting anything? You've essentially just created a money printer.
So, James, not only have you created a money printer, but maybe you failed to really understand greed. Right? It's one thing to know the outcome of the game. It's another thing to go put a bet on the outcome of the game. And now, not only are you the ref, not only are you the players, you're also the betting side of it. You're betting on your own demise. And they do this indirectly. This is Mike Milken Institute. This is what Drexel Burnham Lambert did. Drexel Burnham Lambert was the only hedge fund to be shut down by the U.S. government, and that was in 1990. Those same individuals that were there went on to form Apollo, Ares, and numerous other companies. 83 individuals from there have jobs in the financial world right now. And they all are partners, unspoken partners. And we've connected these dots to tell you that when they take advantage of companies and industries, they do it to each other. They do it for each other. And so it's one versus all. So when you get the heads up, hey, James, I think GameStop's going to go bankrupt. And that's because everyone's on the board of directors that is private equity. They put their people in place to do it. They over leveraged it. Why wouldn't all your friends and buddies go put money on it? I know I've got it. You know that horse is going to win that race. Well, guess what?
Yeah, but you're saying GameStop's not in that situation now. So why wouldn't private equity just exit that position?
You can't.
Anyway, and
you can't. Everybody bought in.
So they wouldn't do it because they'd lose too much. Is that what you're saying?
They're over leveraged, James. They're over leveraged. So it's never happened like this in the history of the stock market, but all of these firms are over leveraged right now.
How over leveraged are we talking?
Billions, without a doubt, billions of dollars. If you saw Melvin Capital, a small hedge fund, a family firm, was over leveraged $4 billion. Can you imagine what Citadel or Apollo or Ares or anyone else that had the same information? They're all in the same circle. Melvin Capital bought the team from Michael Jordan, right? So I'm going to give you this example. Everyone's in the same room. Everyone understands that they're going to double down on these companies. They're going to dunk them, all of them. Bankrupt, Pier 1 Imports, Linens and Things, GNC, all Claire's, the whole mall. Just go to the mall, look at any company and go, okay, Aeropostale bankrupt, Macy's bankrupt. You can do it. All of them bankrupt. The only one you can't point at is GameStop. You can't go to the mall and say bankrupt because it's not. It didn't go. But they thought they had it. They had it on the road. They really did. But that's where DFV walked in. DFV said, how could you buy this company for $3 a share when it's $5 cash? You can't. And that's what you're looking at right now. How can you buy this company when the fundamentals are in the positive? Because gamers aren't the same category. It's a whole different world, and it's forever growing. So they lost, James. They just haven't agreed to it yet, but they will.
Marantz, can I just ask a quick question? One thing, can you just state explicitly the relationship between private equity and the shorts?
Okay, I'm going to try my best here. The relationship between private equity and the shorts. Short hedge funds could be anyone. It can be anyone who opens up a short position. You could be a shorter yourself if you open up a short position. But you don't open up short positions unless you're betting on something, right? Private equity, over the track record, over the history, has given out these signals of when they're going to tank a company. They do things that you've never seen. They will sell off their assets. They will buy back shares when they have no cash. They will pay out dividends when they have no cash. They will hire numerous people to the board for a hostile takeover on the board, and they follow suit. But they've learned to disassociate themselves from the company itself. See, Drexel Burnham Lambert used to do the takeovers themselves, the LBOs, the leverage buyouts. But what they now do it is they do it through other parties. There's one called Forefront Capital. I believe that's the name. It's Front 4 Capital or Forefront Capital. It's one of the names. And they use them to plant people on the board, and they vote in turn to sell to this private equity firm. Or they'll use their other ones, CVC Capital Partners. They've used numerous other. I'll give you Mudrick Capital. There's one right there. A smaller firm that does the bidding for you. And people know this. People know this because the relationships are there. And those relationships have been formed over 30, 40 years. So private equity definitely tells you what they're going to do and how they're going to do it, and they deploy it. And everyone's together. I tell you guys, there's a book out there called The Caesar's Palace Coup, where 9 private equity firms jumped onto Caesar's Palace, and they did what they call vulture capitalism, where they all took a piece of the carcass, and they did it together. And Apollo was the head private equity firm to let that happen. And Apollo didn't even make money off the deal. But what Apollo did was they told the world, this is how you do it. This is how you tear apart a company. They just did it with Bed Bath & Beyond. If people don't understand it, if people don't see it, it's okay. It's going to happen again with AMC movie theaters. It's going to happen very soon, within the next 2 to 3 years. And you'll see exactly how it gets torn apart.
I was just going to add on, so is the implication then that private equity gets involved in a company, purposefully tries to kind of run it to the ground through a leveraged buyout or however, and then their relationship is what they have relationship with short hedge funds. They have short positions, or like where does this tie into people who have a short position in that company? So
when private equity gets involved with the company, that's the signal to the short sellers that, hey, this is a go. You'll see it happen. You'll see it happen all over the place. When we start talking, I'll give you this example. Let's look at Carvana. Carvana right now, 90% of their bonds are owned by Apollo. They owe over $7 billion. So this is long-term equity. They've never had a profitable year. They've only had one profitable quarter, and that was during the pandemic. So they've never made a profit in the history of their company. Everyone knows that private equity owns the bonds. Guess what that is? That's the go signal. And say, hey, I don't care where it's at, go short it. Guess what? It'll go bankrupt eventually. And these firms, people have to understand what shorts and what private equity does. They gather money from the ultra wealthy and pension funds, people that don't need the money today. So they're able to invest it for a long period of time. This is why those executives go in and make poor decisions, because they get paid fees. They get paid their fees for doing the bidding. They go out there and they're like, yeah, I think we should go ahead and do that deal with Sephora. And yeah, Kohl's does a deal with Sephora for $1.5 billion. Well, Kohl's only makes $20 million during the holiday season, net profit. How the hell are they going to pay off $1.5 billion on a bond? They can't. They over leverage themselves on purpose. And it'll happen like this forever. And eventually you'll sell off portions of the companies, and all the money they spent on CapEx, all the money they spent on the SG&A, paying off executives, all these fees, those guys go home with millions of dollars. They don't care. And they get hired again. James, go look at the hiring of private equity from firm to firm to firm. When you see a CEO walk in who has no industry knowledge of the company, the sector, that should throw up a red flag. Why are we hiring somebody from Foot Locker and we're now at a movie theater, or now we're at a gaming store? The parallels don't match, but that's what's been happening for a long time, like 40, 50 years now.
I think, okay, go on, guys.
Sorry, I was just going to say, so just to be extremely clear in this case, do you believe that the short hedge funds and private equity are in collusion for the same goal?
The question is, do I believe that private equity and short hedge funds are colluding? Without a doubt. Without a doubt. It's a fixed game. And I don't think it's just, and I've done this research for the last 3 years, and I've interviewed CEOs, I've interviewed people from the financial firms, and I'm telling you, they all say the same thing. Everyone's in on it. From lawyers to judges, all the way through. and you can't. How can you fix this? Well, you can tap them on the hand and say, hey, you lost some money here, because the GameStop's going to be the ultimate slap on the hand. They all put their hand in that cookie jar, and it didn't work. They did not go bankrupt.
Okay, I have another question here, Ben. Because you mentioned that the private equity firms are over leveraged, I'm assuming through their short positions on this.
Yeah, so that's obviously, private equity firms being over leveraged has a lot to do with not just the short. People would tell you, well, there's the short, and then there's also the economy itself, the market itself. The most dry powder in the history of the stock market is happening right now. Private equity has over $2.2 trillion of dry powder waiting on the sideline, but there are no deals to be made. So that means the rich people are putting money in, and they don't know where it's going to go. They have nowhere to put it. And if you don't know this, there's this new video, a Christmas video out right now. I know it's Christmas right now, but Apollo put out a Christmas video with their CEO and founder, Mark Rowan, and he says, no new toys. That is the mantra for them this year, no new toys. And what that means is they're not going to buy anything new. They're not going to overextend themselves. They're not going to be expanding that company into new things. And it's a phrase they're using right now in the markets, in the system, no new toys, because they know exactly what I know, that they're leveraged. They have nothing to show for it right now. They have to keep that dry powder to offset what their short is. But if GameStop progresses and goes positive, and the company's phenomenal, and people start pouring in, and Ryan Cohen gets this monster rocket going, what are you going to do? Everyone's going to get blown up, and no one's going to let that happen. When are you going to stop the market again? I can imagine, but I promise you, it's fundamentally driven. So go watch it. No new toys.
So here's what I want to ask, right? So you've said that these firms are over leveraged to the tune of potentially billions. And you've said that based on fundamentals alone, GameStop price might rise to $100 potentially. Also, that these firms, I believe, have bigger blue chip firms as their collateral.
Yes.
So with all three of those things happening, the price rising to potentially $100, the private equity firms that have over leveraged exposure to GameStop, which will suffer from that, and them using large blue chip firms as that collateral, what does that mean for the economy as a whole when that price spikes to that level, and for those short hedge funds?
So let me explain. I think the best way to explain what's going to happen to this economy and the longs of the shorts, right? The short hedge funds, what they're invested in long collateral. They're invested at the top of the S&P 500 right now. Everyone can see the valuations that they're getting at the top 7 stocks. They used to call them the FANG stocks, but now you guys know who they are. They're Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, and the whole 9 yards. There's 7 companies that they're pushing. The economy, if you look at the bottom half of the S&P 500, it actually is falling apart. Those bottom 20 companies don't hold up well. GameStop actually has better fundamentals than the bottom 20. So GameStop eventually will get into the S&P 500 fundamentally. Okay, when this happens, we're now on the same team. That means you can't short GameStop, because if you short GameStop, you're shorting the SPY. You're shorting the actual thing you're long on. So the problem they're going to have, just so that everyone's clear, short hedge funds and these private investment firms are going to have an issue attacking GameStop when GameStop's on the same team. And it's going to happen. They don't want it to happen, but it's going to happen. It's inevitable. The market cap is going to get there. The actual fundamentals of the company are going to push it there. So when it gets to $100 a share, you're in trouble at $40 a share. You don't even need $100. At $40 a share, this whole world's going to start feeling the pressure of GameStop, because that means it has a $12 billion market cap. It's in the S&P 500 or eligible, and everyone's going to be on pins and needles. So they can't let it get to 40, and you've seen it been short down all the way from there. That's the breaking point.
And to be clear, when you say the whole world's going to feel the trouble, we're talking about that's coming from the fact that we're seeing a ton of hedge funds, big hedge funds making billions worth of losses that will then trickle down to pension funds, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes. You see, these hedge funds, either the ultra wealthy, right? They're what they call accredited investors. So when we talk about the effects of the market and who they affect, one, they affect pension funds because pension funds are the biggest investors into the markets today. Additionally, they're going to affect the accredited investors. An accredited investor is anyone that makes $200,000 to $300,000 a year, has a net worth of over $1 million, and those prerequisites have not been adjusted over the last 40 years. It's been the same buy-in since 1980 that it is today. Should they get adjusted? I think they should. But the ultra wealthy are the individuals who are going to get affected by this the most. So the individuals in power, the individuals at the top, they know this because that's them. And so they have to find a way for it not to happen. But this is inevitable. GameStop is inevitable.
Gosh, I think.
So,
yeah, go on.
I just need this to be really, really clear for me, as somebody who's not necessarily a financial expert. When GameStop gets past that point, the $40 mark,
yep,
the $100 mark, and these private equity firms are fighting against somebody who is on the same team as them, quote unquote.
Yeah.
What happens for me, for the normal person? What happens?
Okay. So when GameStop actually gets into the S&P 500, it gets to that $40 price point on the stock itself. It's going to trigger a lot of things. It's going to trigger mandatory buy-ins on ETFs that contain or trade off the index. And individuals, like the common day guy, is going to see their pension fund and or their 401ks come crumbling down because at that point, you're going to have to sell off and buy back into GameStop. And your collateral right now, you're not necessarily just holding on to cash. You park your cash into these things that have been spiking up. You're going to have to sell off those shares. So all the top of the S&P is going to come down. GameStop's going to go up because they're going to be forced to buy in. Remember that you get margin called at this point. Margin calls will come. And it just has to be one or two. One or two margin calls can trigger the sustained of what you look at for the MOAS itself. Right? Now, this theoretically can happen, but it's going to take a lot of work, a lot of energy, and it's going to take, for GameStop to hold that $40 price point for a couple of quarters. And it's not just they hit 40 and now we're there. It has to hit 40. People have to see it for what it is, fundamentally sound. Over the last 4 quarters already, they've been positive on cash flow. Over the last, it'll be this quarter right now, they'll be positive on the balance sheet. That makes them eligible right there. So they just need the market cap to crumble, and you'll see exactly how it happens.
So I'm really sorry, Marantz. Could you go back a sentence and say that again? The connection cut out.
Yeah. So GameStop just needs that $40 price point, and when it gets to $40 a share, the market should be crumbling at that point because people are going to be panicking. They're going to have to sell off their blue chips to pay for that short. All short sellers are potential buyers. So the 60 million reported short sells right now, those guys are eventually going to have to buy in once this stock keeps tricking up. These swaps that happen for GameStop, getting in and out, there's going to be greedy people even at the top. So when it keeps happening this way, the top of the S&P 500 is going to melt off, without a doubt.
So when you say that the top of the S&P 500 is going to melt off, again, just to be dead clear.
Yeah.
That sounds to me like recession at minimum. Is that accurate?
So when we say the top of the S&P 500 is going to sell off, it's not necessarily recession per se. There's two things that happen when you think about recession. One is going to be a 20% drop on the SPY itself, but you have to see double digits on unemployment as well. This is the problem that I've had with 2022. 2022 was one of the lowest times of the stock market. It came all the way down 20%, but yet unemployment didn't spike. So with interest rates rising, like we've been having with the Fed, but no one's falling off, no one's actually applying for unemployment, that means that it's not a hard enough spike. I need to see more pressure on that end. But it's going to affect the top line for a lot of people, but it's all about retirement funds at this point. The baby boomers are all cashing out while everyone else is buying in, but some of these older folks are going to hurt. It's going to hurt their pocket for sure. The fixed income folks, without a doubt. And that's GameStop, and I'm sorry to say it, But I'm not afraid of it. It's not us. It's not our greed. It's the private investment firms. It's their greed.
So just to be clear, a consequence of this is recession plus unemployment?
I mean, yes. I mean, it would have to happen if you're going to call it a recession. Unemployment would have to take into effect if that were going to happen. But some firms, when they lose market cap, they panic at the top because they're all greedy, right? That CEOs are overpaid, executives and board of directors, they all want to make their money. And when their share price is coming screaming down, they might get into a panic. Some people don't. You won't see Elon Musk and Tesla crying or crumbling. They're just going to keep doing their business because eventually, and it's always going to be the younger CEOs. The younger CEO is not retiring today. So like Ryan Cohen's not retiring. It's his identity. It's what he will be when it comes for GameStop. But the older guys, the guys who are 70, 80 doing estate planning, they're the ones panicking. It won't be the younger crowd.
In terms of the impact for the world, how does an event like this compare to, for example, an event like the 2008 recession?
The 2008 housing crisis and how it can compare to what is going to happen now, I would just tell you the 2008 housing crisis never stopped. It never ended. It's almost like the Korean War, where the war never ended. It's just a ceasefire. They printed money and bailed out the auto industry and the home industry, the house building industry. So everyone just said, it's okay. And then they went on a stretch of 15 years of free money where you were able to borrow money at 0% interest and or Covey Light, right? So these Covey Light loans, these bonds that you were able to take out had minimal requirements, and now they're Covey heavy. Everything has heavy covenants. And when you're borrowing money, you have to put a certain amount of people on the board of directors. You have to have certain cash flow. You have to have all these prerequisites to hold this bond. And when you fail on the covenants, they trigger bankruptcy and or voluntary bankruptcy so that you can control it. And I said this, right? So when you see a company transitioning and pivoting for bankruptcy, you'll know it because they'll start hiring other people to the board of directors. And that's what Bed Bath & Beyond did. They started hiring certain people that had a track record of bankruptcy. So when you saw Holly Etlin come in at Bed Bath & Beyond, you go, she's a chief restructuring officer. She did the Pier 1 Imports bankruptcy. That's what she's here for. She's here for bankruptcy. And everyone out there was telling you that she's not. But the story's in the cards themselves, and you play it and you see it. So the channel that I've built, that we've been here, we've been talking for so long, it's not just about GameStop. It's everything to do with private equity and how they position themselves within America and how they take money from I guess the common day man, and they've been doing it for a long time. Just
to maybe clarify on Ayaz's question, what I think he was also getting at was, I guess, just purely on a comparison level in terms of, so that we understand the scale which you're talking about here.
Yeah.
The comparison between what happened with 2008, given even if you think it's continued on, and we're still seeing obviously the trickle effects of what happened, but just losses experienced around that period of the 2008 crash versus what you're saying could be a potential scenario here. But what are we looking at in terms of the difference between these two events?
So I think this event will be much larger than the housing crash of 2008. I think this crash and or this correction is going to be exactly what 2008 had to be, what it should have been. But no one ever wants to take the full hit on the chin. I don't know if you guys have ever been in a relationship, but when a relationship's run its course, you file for divorce. And a lot of people don't. A lot of people say, we'll figure it out, and they try to string it along a little longer. That's this relationship right now in the financial world. They should have took a hard cut. They should have took it on the chin on 2008, but they didn't. They allowed the buyouts and they allowed the printout. The pandemic was no different. The pandemic should have crippled this world. Not just this market, should have crippled the world. We printed money and so did every other country so that we wouldn't take on that hardship. Well, guess what? You combine the 2008 housing crisis, financial crisis with the pandemic, and now you have something that's catastrophic, something you cannot contain. And it just so happens GameStop's one little pin to what that is, but the over leverage of the markets themselves. Yeah, this is all faked up. This is all propped up on printed money. We're going to have a huge problem, guys. And I'm not a doomsday guy. I'm just going to tell you, if you're not prepared for it, it's going to hurt your stomach. That's my opinion.
So what is, because just to be blunt, this sounds catastrophic. After this happens, what is left? What does the economy of the world or of the United States look like?
After this big moment happens where the markets come crumbling and GameStop maybe prevails through all of this, you don't know what's sustainable, what's not. Is the entertainment dollar going to be there? Is the consumer discretionary dollar going to be there? If you saw what happened at the Great Depression, it was a whole reset of the U.S. economy. And I've seen it full cycle, right? Like I've studied it and I've read about it through books with Ben Graham, seen what Warren Buffett talked about over these last 93 years with him, and Charlie Munger himself, God rest his soul. But what I think will happen is individuals will learn the true lesson that, you can't just keep printing money to fix your problems. And you'll see people start stuffing cash under the mattress again, like my grandparents did. My grandparents didn't open up bank accounts. They didn't believe in it. They felt that was where you put your money to lose it. And, we have a whole different way of thinking now because generationally we put our money away. We don't keep it in a tin can and a tin coffee cup. So I just think it's a full cycle, and greed has set in. And these guys, the ultra wealthy at the top, they will lose their wealth. That's my opinion.
And in this kind of what sounds like situation comparable to the Great Depression or something like that, where does GameStop end up?
GameStop it has to be recognized not as just a gaming company. And when that happens, that's when you'll see the future of GameStop. To say that GameStop is the future with Web 3.0 and or with the holdings company where Ryan Cohen parks his wealth, it's all dependent on the transition of where they want to go. I don't see certain companies falling apart. Like I don't see Apple falling apart, Samsung, the tech companies falling apart. I see other sectors falling apart. And I say that because I'm in retail. And I'll give you this example. When I was in retail growing up, my grandfather worked at a grocery store. And those grocery stores don't exist anymore. Numerous stores don't exist. But there is one place you can get food, fuel, and medicine, and that's Costco. So, Costco's going to be the mainstay. Costco's not going to be affected, but everything else would be around them. And I would tell you there's going to be those little companies out there that might thrive and do well. I think GameStop's going to be one, dependent on the relationships they build within the next 5 to 10 years.
When you say that Costco, for example, will survive because of they're providing food, fuel, and medicine, that sounds quite apocalyptic. Like, do you anticipate the average person not being able to have access to those three things in this kind of scenario?
I think we all lived in the pandemic. I think we all understood what the impact was socially, and for the development of people and children. My children are clear examples of that. But I think it also taught us what we live in excess of. Like you learned how to save money, you learned how to eat and survive, and understand that, these are the essential jobs to this economy. And when you played it out that way, you say, okay, we can survive, we can do these things, but maybe we need to take more consideration towards the things that matter. So what went away? Laser tag facilities, virtual reality stores, all the excess stuff that you ever did, these trap room things that we do here in America. There's all these things that people got away from. Not everyone's going to a bowling alley. Not everybody wants to touch dirty bowling balls and bowl them down the lanes. So maybe those industries are gone. Maybe they don't make as much money as they once did. But you learned what to value and what not to. So that'll come up again. It's not that everything will come crumbling down. We're just going to walk around, caveman style. But you'll understand what to value and what not to, and what's essential. And right now, go ahead, James.
I was just going to say, but to be clear, like we're saying that one of the trigger points for an event like this is GameStop and its share price rising to $3.
I think to be clear, yes, I think GameStop can have a huge impact on what it is. Some people tell you no. And I'll just tell it to you like this, James. You and I are having these conversations about GameStop because people do believe that, right? Because I'm not the only one. But media would tell you, forget about GameStop. Don't worry about it. You don't need to buy it. If you didn't need to worry about it or not buy it or buy something else, they wouldn't tell you. They would just forget about it. They would just, okay. No one tells you not to buy into X, Y, and Z company that doesn't exist anymore. You should not invest into Chuck E. Cheese. Yeah, we know it's been bankrupt before and it's a terrible investment, whatever. So I'm not trying to buy Blockbuster. Did I have to see 2,000 videos and documentaries about not buying Blockbuster? No. We knew it was gone. We knew the industry was gone. But that was manufactured by private equity as well. Same thing with Toys R Us. So I just want people to know the history of what private equity has done. And that's why I talk about it. But yeah, GameStop, it absolutely will trigger something. I don't know what exactly, but I feel that if you wanted to see something crazy, let GameStop get to $40 a share. Let them sit on the same team with private equity and the long investments, and you'll see something. That without a doubt, we've already seen it.